614 Startups Nation, welcome to another episode of the 614 Startups Podcast. My name is Elio Harmon, your host. And man, listen, I feel like college game day right now. And I just hopped in the bus and drove that thing all the way up to Cleveland. We have one of our few, maybe even our first Cleveland-based founder. I want to welcome my very special guest this evening, Mr. Tony Pietrocola of AgileBlue. Tony, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you for having me. Thanks for coming up 71 and saying hi to us in Cleveland.
Yeah, man, with virtual, everything's possible. And now everything's going either virtual or AI in our world. Hopefully we don't ever lose the human touch. But listen, the work that you do touches just about everything that we do in this virtual world. And I wanted to explore that conversation with you because it has implications for our listeners. So I want to jump right into this conversation. No delay here. You're the subject matter expert. I'm going to poke you for a lot of insights tonight. But let's talk about cybersecurity. So what is cybersecurity and how did you get started in this industry?
Look, at the end of the day, cybersecurity is all about playing defense, right? The hackers are aggressive. Cybersecurity is a organization's risk mitigation plan to combat a potential hack or compromise that can not only take money, but maybe even bring a company down and steal data and lock it up and all that bad stuff. So, cybersecurity industry is defense, but it's a tough industry, right? And the reason we got started is a couple of reasons. Reason number one, I'm a technologist, and we like to build autonomous technology that we think is going to protect our customers. Number two, it's great to also try to protect small to mid-sized businesses and state and local governments that sometimes don't have those resources, Elio, that they need. So that's what we do. And then the third one is I'm a capitalist as well. So it's great to be in an industry that is growing and that has a tremendous future as well, because it's great to build this landscape for AgileBlue.
That's amazing. And so you said you're a technologist. Was this your glide path always to being a cybersecurity founder? Did you stumble on it? How did you actually get your start building AgileBlue?
I would love to lie and say this has been my life's passion. It hasn't been. Started at Apple many years ago as an engineer. My first company out of Cleveland was called 10th Floor. We were an e-commerce content management platform that was acquired many years ago. But cybersecurity has always been a component, especially back then with the commerce and things like that. So it's always been interesting to me. When we started AgileBlue, my co-founder, Joe Marquette, had some experience in this industry and really got me thinking about it. So a little bit is fortuitous. A lot of it is what's going on in the world. And cybersecurity obviously has a lot going on in the world. So that's really been the trajectory into cybersecurity.
All right. So what is at AgileBlue? What problem? I mean, we already alluded to the problem, cybersecurity. Who do you solve that problem for? And then how do you solve it?
Yeah, it's a great question. So AgileBlue is an AI-based security operations platform, which people use acronyms. It's called SecOps. And what that means is our technology is looking for anomalous behavior in behaviors, networks, cloud, and it's looking to identify that anomalous behavior and stop it to mitigate that risk. We also back that up with a 24/7 team that's in Ohio, both Cleveland and Columbus. And that team is our customers' cybersecurity team 24/7, because our customer base is mid-sized businesses, right? They don't always have flush budgets for cyber. Also, state and local governments that generally are deprived a lot of that budget. So we come in to offer that as a service and make sure they have both the tech and the people to run that 24/7 cyber team for them. So that's what we are. We're a security operations platform and 24/7 team.
Yeah, so without giving away the secret sauce, you mentioned that you guys are an AI platform. Give me a little bit of a layman's explanation of anomalous behavior and how AI is maybe the best way of detecting that versus what existed before.
It's a great question, because think about this. Machine learning has been around a long time, and we've used machine learning from day one to also build machine learning rule sets, detect anomalous behavior. What AI allows us to do is now, with a ton of intelligence, building off of a large language model that we can be captive and private, and understand behaviors of a client and their network and their people and how they use the cloud. By using AI for that, we're able to do what humans used to have to do: review log files, build case summaries, make a decision if this is anomalous, malicious, or benign. We have now technology where we use AI that does that in seconds, and then can bring in a human and say, hey, it doesn't say hey, but it can if we wanted to, but it says, hey, here's what I'm seeing. Here's what I think it is. And here's what I suggest, in seconds, where it used to maybe take 5 minutes, 8 minutes, 10 minutes. Speed's the best way to win in cybersecurity, speed and accuracy. AI allows us to have both speed and accuracy in our implementations.
Yeah, so most of our audience are startup founders and investors. Startup founders might be thinking I'm way too early. Investors are like, maybe it's top of mind for them. Why should cybersecurity be a more pressing, top of mind concern for a startup founder and for an investment firm?
So think about this. Just about every company you probably interview is a technology company. And if they're not a digital or technology company, it's probably 80% of their business, no matter what they do, right? I was talking to someone the other day that makes hats, and their secret sauce is they have this technology that creates hats fast. So at the end of the day, are they a hat company or technology company? The point to me telling you this or saying this is digital companies can only protect themselves digitally. It'd be like having an office building and not having a key to get in or a fob to get in. You're going to get things stolen, right? They're going to do things to you. Well, if you're a digital business or a business that relies on technology, if that gets disrupted or shut down or stolen, how could you operate your business? Or if somebody locks up your business and says, hey, if you want to continue, you got to give me $2 million. Does the average startup have $2 million? And by the way, if you're a venture capital or private equity firm and you've just invested cash in someone and now a couple mil might be going to or paying ransomware, how does that look at a board meeting? How does that actually work? How does that actually not take that startup down? So cybersecurity is the core at everything we do these days, and especially we're all in the cloud. That security is the key to making sure our digital platforms work and our customer data is protected.
So let me ask you this: you've described cybersecurity so far as a defensive tool, but startup founders need to be on the offense. How can we use our cybersecurity stack, or how secure we are, or maybe even an investor when they're talking to a startup founder? How can we play offense by doing this, right? Usually the return on investment in defense is pretty boring, right? Because it didn't happen, it's really hard to quantify the benefit. But if something happens because of your cybersecurity platform, you may have your customer on the front foot. So how can we play offense with our cybersecurity stack?
Yeah, it's a great question. First of all, no offense taken. I played college football. I played defense. I didn't play offense. So I think defense wins championships, my friend. So, and I'm a big Buckeyes guy. I got a daughter there now. So that defense looks pretty darn good this year. Give us 3 points and we'll win. No, look, it's a funny point you bring up. And look, defense, unfortunately, with cyber is the way it is, because if you're thinking about playing offense, that means how do we go attack the hackers, right? Nation states do that. Nation states like the United States goes after groups and things like that because they have those types of resources. They have that type of, I guess, authorization to do things like that. Companies like ours don't. What we can do to play offense, though, is we can understand the profiles of how someone's getting attacked, ransomware, different types of tactics and techniques hackers use, build machine learning to detect that very quick, understand that behavior, and get things shut down. So offensively, we're understanding how we get attacked, but defensively, we're laying out that layered security to make sure it doesn't happen. Or if it does happen, how can we best mitigate the problem? That's the best way to look at cybersecurity.
This episode is brought to you by Rev1. Rev1's mission is to help entrepreneurs build great companies. As you navigate the waters of business entrepreneurship, you don't have to go it alone. A strategic partnership with Rev1 connects innovators to the talent, customers, space, and funding you need when you need it. Get started with Rev1 Startup Studio by visiting rev1ventures.com to learn more. Again, the website is rev1ventures.com. Support for the 614 Startups podcast comes from Nationwide. Nationwide's mission is to protect people, businesses, and futures with extraordinary care. To help fulfill that mission, Nationwide is looking to invest its $350 million venture capital investment fund in insurtechs that will help them create new and exciting products and solutions to meet the needs of their customers. If you're interested in partnering with Nationwide's venture capital team, visit nationwideventures.com to learn more. Again, the website is nationwideventures.com. Nationwide is on your side.
Yeah, and maybe, my audience and most audiences of startup founders, for some reason, are obsessed with raising funding and acquiring customers, as they should, especially on the acquiring customers front. And if you're going to integrate with somebody else's software, they're going to be asking you about your security, right? They don't want your company or the fact that they do business with you to create a vulnerability in their system. And so that's another way you could possibly play offense with cybersecurity, by prioritizing it and saying, hey, not only are we thinking about ourselves, we're thinking about you as our customer and protecting you. All right. So how do I do a risk assessment to kind of understand how vulnerable we are, or how does a company like Blue, if somebody comes to engage with you, you're really assessing their risk profile?
Number one is called visibility. Just about every organization, the Fortune 500 all the way down to a two-man startup, rarely has visibility across their entire attack surface, right? Their servers, their network, the cloud, Office 365, all these little things. Do they have true visibility? So the first thing we do is understand it from an internal perspective. What does everything look like? What's the attack surface look like? Number one. Number two, what are the vulnerabilities and gaps that have to be tightened up? Here's the big one though, external. Externally, if somebody has your domain or IP address, they're going to use a bazillion tactics, bazillion being a technical term, of course, a bazillion tactics to find out where the weakest link is. We do external posture scans to know where that is. So not only are we constantly monitoring and detecting and responding to an attack, Elio, we start way at the beginning of understanding that attack surface and firming up those gaps and vulnerabilities, working towards putting in those best practices to make that organization as hardened as we possibly can. It's just like a military base, right? Military base has all kinds of concrete and obviously guys with machine guns, and it has barbed wire fence. Same thing with us, just in a digital realm, layered security to make sure if there's a breach, we have our best foot forward to contain that.
So nothing is 100% guaranteed. However, we still want a certain level of protection about anything, right? In life, where there's no guarantees, but we want to mitigate our downside risk. What's a reasonable expectation? I'm not just pointing to AgileBlue here, but what is a reasonable expectation that a customer can have that if they address most of the common cyber threats, of course, criminals are getting smarter every day. What is I don't know, what's the amount of risk that any one company should really be able to expect with cybersecurity? And then if it does happen, no matter how small the risk, what are some steps that companies can take to try to recover?
It's a great question. So you're right. Look, nothing in life's 100%. Death and taxes, like everybody says, right? The rest is a mitigation plan. So we think if you're monitoring 24/7 an entire network, if something still happens, at least you know about it immediately. If something happens at 2 a.m., right, and you don't have people watching, you don't find out about it till 8 or 9 p.m., obviously, or a.m. That's way too late. You've already been taken over. You've already been hacked. If something happens at 2 a.m. and we discover it at 2:01 a.m., and we're able to start moving on it to mitigate it down to machines, but not the entire network, or disable an account so it doesn't get the whole 365 attack surface. We've just mitigated it. We've actually mitigated it. Did we stop it? No, it might have hit a laptop, but really nothing bad's going to happen if it hits a laptop, as long as it doesn't proliferate into the network and into the cloud and into where all that really damaging customer information is. So 24/7 constant and continual monitoring is the only way to make sure you can not only stop, but more importantly, mitigate those risks. And look, if something happens, it's called incident response, right? You need to move fast. We need to understand where the issue is, make sure that that gap has been sealed up so they don't just keep coming back at it. and then do our best to do whatever we have to do to get the organization back up and running again, even if that means negotiating with the bad guy. Now, we don't want to do that. No one wants to do that. The FBI doesn't want you to do that. But if they've locked up your business, locked up your data, locked up your control, and there's no backups or ways to get back, you sometimes have to make that decision to do that. So that incident response process can be very, very layered, can take some time, and you need people who know what they're doing big time to figure that stuff out.
Okay, so we know there are risks out there. We know that doing nothing is not an option. And some people think they've done something, but maybe they're not quite sure how effective it is. How important is it, regardless of whether or not you're building your own cybersecurity stack or you've hired somebody else, to stress test it? And how does AgileBlue go about stress testing its system to find its own vulnerabilities?
So number one, if you have any type of SaaS-based application, whether you're the provider of it or a user of it, you have to do application security testing, right? So we do application security testing all the time. Number one. Number two, think about what goes before an application, Elio. When programmers are coding, they could be creating holes or potential gaps in something without even know it, right? They're just coding an application. So we use tools that understand best practices, the OWASP top 10, understanding when we're creating code to make sure we're creating code at the highest levels. So even when we go do that application security test, we know we're going to pass that thing with flying colors because we know we're programming in a very secure way. Next is your pen tests, internal, external pen tests, acting like a hacker, thinking like a hacker, a white hat hacker nonetheless, but still a hacker, making sure all those ways a hacker, those TTPs, those tactics, techniques, and procedures hackers use, we're trying them, we're using them a couple times a year to see if we can penetrate in. And then again, I'm going to go back to what I mentioned earlier, the fact that we're constantly monitoring if something does happen, if one of those alarms or triggers does get triggered, we're moving on it fast. Our AI allows us to respond in milliseconds, getting people involved in like a minute and being able to put that attack down. That is literally the key. And by the way, I don't care what organization you are. You could be a startup that does HR software or e-commerce software or whatever. You have to test your code. You have to test your applications. You have to make sure pen tests are getting done. Otherwise, if the door's wide open and you just expect to sit there with a shotgun, people can still get in, right? Forgive the metaphor, but at the end of the day, people can still get in. So you got to have the proper security in place.
Yeah, 100%. This is America. You have the right to bear arms, but that doesn't mean you need to keep your door unlocked, right? You got to still lock the door. Maybe you get a dog as well. There's nothing wrong with having multiple layers of security. All right. So as a cybersecurity guy, you're living this stuff every single day. You're seeing people who are doing it right, people who aren't doing it right. What are those threats? What are those trends that kind of that force you to keep innovating, to keep iterating on your AI so that it gets better and better? What are the threats out there that you're on the lookout for right now? What's trending?
Constant. That's the word. So, the first thing you're going to think about is ransomware, right? Everybody hears about it. You see it in the news, whether you're reading the Wall Street Journal or put on CNN in the morning, whatever you do, you're seeing somebody got hit with ransomware, right? That's number one. So we're constantly understanding the updates of the hashes with ransomware. What does ransomware hit? There's many ransomware families. What does it specifically do in terms of its behavior? We're watching for those things because if we start seeing those triggers pushed, we want to jump on those fast. But think about it. Right now, unfortunately, in this world, there's a number of kinetic wars going on as well. You got stuff in the Middle East, unfortunately. You got stuff in the Ukraine, and you got stuff in other parts of the world that's not as publicized. When there's kinetic events, understand those nation states can also be using hacking teams for funding mechanisms or to bring down critical infrastructures or supply chains that's actually contributing to that war, whether it's munitions, whether it's energy. Think about the supply chains that have been disrupted with food in all of these, both these kinetic wars going on. It's awful, right? Because it's affecting humans. Hackers use those tools, those techniques into that. So not only are we looking for the standard stuff, the MITRE chain, which is an organization that says, hey, here's the 277 top ways hackers hit, and here's the anomalous behaviors we're seeing. It's very specific things into water systems. I don't know if you've seen lately, but everybody's been talking about the vulnerability of water systems. We've seen it here in the state of Ohio. Water systems are vulnerable. So there's specific ways those are being attacked. There's very specific ways critical infrastructure, airports are being attacked as well. So, it's such a multi-pronged approach. The AI has to constantly be evolving. The machine learning has to constantly be understanding, because we constantly have to stay on top of both nation state attacks and hacker gangs, right? Gangs that are just built with a lot of smart people who go out there and look to do this from a capitalistic perspective and make money. Nation states can be in it for the money as well, but a lot of them are in it for the disruption, the stolen property, stolen intellectual property, taking down water systems, electricity grids, things like that. That's going to make it easier for them to fight wars. It's a very multi-pronged approach these days, Elio.
Hey there, 614 Startups community. We're thrilled to share some exciting news with you. This podcast is proudly supported by Loop, the game changers in return management. Not only are they revolutionizing e-commerce, but they're also on the lookout for talented individuals to join their dynamic team. Looking to be part of a company that values innovation and fosters a vibrant culture? Well, Loop is the place to be. Check out their open positions at loopreturns.com/careers. And here's the scoop. Loop has been recognized by Forbes as one of the next billion-dollar startups of 2023. Want to be part of a success story? Now's your chance. Don't miss out on this incredible opportunity. Head over to loopreturns.com/careers and be part of something extraordinary. Loop, where innovation meets success. Apply now. This episode is brought to you by KJK. Tired of the billable hour? KJK has a solution. The KJK GC Advantage program offers businesses comprehensive legal services in the areas of employment, corporate services, real estate, trademark, intellectual property, and estate planning, all for a set monthly fee. KJK serves as their clients' partners in business, not just their lawyers. Along with cost certainty and predictability, the KJK GC Advantage program gives clients peace of mind, knowing their projects will be handled quickly and efficiently, maximizing the return on investment on their legal spend. So don't go it alone. Let KJK help. Learn more by visiting kjk.com.
Yeah, I love that because, chaos breeds chaos. And sometimes you might think that your company isn't vulnerable because there are issues going on over there. When this is a global economy, right? We're all connected. What happens elsewhere could definitely impact you. And you need to be aware and protect yourself against cybersecurity threats. All right. So you said you were a capitalist, so you're a guy who isn't shy talking about money. How does this thing make money? And then for little old us, all right, who don't have we don't have these big cybersecurity budgets, how much should we be thinking about on an annual basis spending on cybersecurity, let's say with a small firm and maybe a medium-sized firm?
Yeah, it's a great question. And think about it like this. What a SaaS provider provides in any industry is they've taken a cost that's pretty darn expensive that the average small and mid-sized business can't afford, and they've democratized it across all their customers, right? So we've spent a lot of money building our company, building our tech, and we don't sell it as an enterprise application, right? It's a SaaS-based application, meaning our hundreds and hundreds of customers are all paying a monthly fee, right? So a monthly fee that they can afford, not something that's a capital that's going to hit their capital expenditures on a 1-year basis and charge them $100,000, right? Which they can't just generally afford. So AI, which is really expensive. That's why NVIDIA stock is like this. And all these AI players are like this. We're buying that at a process that allows us to buy at a bigger price, democratize it across our entire customer base, and make sure the average customer that can't afford $100,000 right now writing a check, they can maybe afford $2,000 or $3,000 or $4,000 a month, depending on the size of their business, or $10,000, whatever the size of their business is, but they can afford it month by month. They know they have their team, and then they can take advantage of all these new technologies like the cloud, like security, and more importantly, these days, like AI. When you see the cost of AI from an infrastructure, a compute perspective, it is really pricey stuff, and it's only getting more expensive. You got to assume with technology, though, and all the laws of that those numbers will start coming down, but they're not coming down just yet. They're going like this, and so are the stock prices of those companies. So companies like us can democratize it across our customer base it allows all of us to be playing on a more even playing field, because the hackers, they find ways, they find the cash to do it. So you can't combat AI with analog stuff. You need the latest AI to combat the AI they're going to be using.
Yeah, the benefits of not having to build your own solution. That solution is constantly being updated. The company is your partner in helping you identify risks and threats. Man, listen, you're a capitalist and you're democratizing. All right, this is America. I love it. So for those folks who've listened to this podcast, they're like, man, I might be vulnerable. Tony is my guy. I need his help. How do folks get a hold of either you or your sales team over at AgileBlue? What's the best way for startups and companies in general to engage with you?
Yeah, look, it's just having that first discussion, right? Because when an organization wants to talk about what they have, and generally all companies want to talk about this type of stuff because they know they need it. Doesn't mean they're going to do it, and doesn't mean they're going to be able to afford us or someone else or IBM or whomever, CrowdStrike, whoever is a competitor. But you get a hold of us. You go to AgileBlue.com, and at least we have a discussion. At least we're able to educate you. At least you're able to understand where you are. Look, it's not for everyone. We understand that. We understand organizations sometimes have to grow into things. But we work with a lot of startups. This is why I'm glad I'm on this podcast. A lot of startups who grow into us. And we have, the way we work with customers is understanding. We were a startup at one point too. Look, man, we're only 4.5 years old. It's not like we're, 15, 20 years old. I might be old, but our company is young. So, we understand these budgets. We understand what's reasonable. We understand how to get organizations started. So let's just have a conversation, see what makes sense, see what doesn't, and at least you know where you're standing on the other side.
All right, Tony, final question, man. You've been at this game for a while, and you've probably seen an economy or two in your time. What's your outlook right now for the cybersecurity industry as a whole? Like you said, you love industries that are growing, but also what are some threats you see on the horizon for your industry?
Look, at the end of the day, I think our industry also has a lot of players in it, right? So there's a little bit of saturation, and sometimes when you have that, messages get mixed up. Everybody thinks, oh, everybody's doing the same thing, and they don't understand where maybe organizations stand out and do a little bit different. Look, we're a younger company. We don't have that legacy stuff, so we really focus with applications, SaaS, cloud, right? Not the legacy big servers and mainframes and things like that. So, you have a message distortion issue. Number one. Number two, sometimes folks think cybersecurity is just this ridiculously expensive thing and there's no way I can afford it. I'll just pay the ransomware, they think. It doesn't work like that anymore. Like we all know with markets, when there's supply and demand, that pricing can be brought down, and cybersecurity is more affordable these days, but you got to have 24/7 monitoring and detection. Otherwise, there's no way to combat the bad guys. But that's what I see. And at the end of the day, the last thing I'll say is this: the bad guys are good at what they do. So we are not only playing defense, we're going against really smart engineering people who we wish we had, right? We wish they were the good guys on our team, because these guys are smart. They know how to attack networks and cloud, and they're able to bring organizations down. So it's a game that keeps us on our toes 24/7, 365.
All right, Tony, anything that you wanted to cover today that we didn't touch on, anything for the good of the listening audience?
No, look, I really appreciate you having me on this. I know you talk to a lot of startups and folks, so thanks for helping me get out the word about cybersecurity and how important it is for them. And if anybody has any questions, check us out at AgileBlue.com. Happy to have a chat.
Yeah, man. Now you can put a face with a name. This is a man about Ohio. He's all about the Ohio tech scene. You might catch him at a 614 Startups event. You might catch him at Venture Fest. You might catch him down in Cincinnati for Black Tech Week. You might catch him at Ohio X. So don't be a stranger. If you see Tony, walk up to him, shake his hand, let him know that you heard him on the 614 Startups podcast. And I will leave you guys with my parting word. I too played college football for the Wittenberg Tigers. And I too believe that defense wins championships, and entrepreneurship is a long-term game. So take a long-term perspective, protect yourself against cyber threats, reach out to Tony and his company. They're here to help you. All right, folks, thank you for tuning in again. Until next time, peace.
That's a wrap, folks. You can find this and all our episodes on our website, 614startups.com, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, and all your favorite podcasting platforms. Don't forget to subscribe and write a review. If you'd like updates sent directly to your inbox, you can sign up for our weekly newsletter on the website. To engage in the 614 Startups community, follow us on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at 614 Startups on all platforms and join the conversation. For sponsorship opportunities and collaborations, email us at info@614startups.com.